A few years ago, I found myself working for a towing company. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid well enough for me to get by. The only problem was that we had to share trucks, and the boss had a habit of telling us where to sit in order to get the best calls. Little did I know, this would become crucial later on. After a few months on the job, I started to realize that I wasn't making as much money as I thought I should be. So one evening, while I was sitting in a parking lot waiting for a call, I decided to do some research. I wanted to know what kind of rights employees like me had under the law. As it turned out, if our boss required us to sit in a certain location, then we were entitled to be paid an hourly wage, not just our commission. This was known as being engaged to wait. However, if he allowed us to freely roam while waiting for calls, then we were considered waiting to be engaged, and we weren't entitled to hourly wages. I started to take note of my time, but I didn't tell my boss what I'd learned. A month or so later, my boss started to come down on me for the smallest things. If I forgot to throw away a soda can, he'd have a screaming fit. It was clear that he was looking for any excuse to make my life difficult. At that point, I'd had enough. I found another job and decided to put my plan into action. I called my boss and asked to meet with him to discuss my final wages. When I got to his office, I laid out my argument and explained the state law. I told him that I expected to be paid for the hours that I was on the clock, but not allowed to do anything of my choosing while waiting for calls. My boss refused to pay me, saying that we had agreed to the terms of my employment when I started. I didn't argue with him. I already had my next step planned. I took my final check and left the office. The following Monday, I called the state labor board and told them my story. They were very interested in what was going on, and they came to review my boss's employment records and speak to the drivers who were still working for him. In the end, my boss was hit with a bill that he couldn't afford to pay. He had to sell his trucks, his boat, and his lot, and he went out of business. I never got all the money that was owed to me, but I didn't care. Watching my boss's downfall was pure bliss.
Back when I was living on the northwest coast of Puerto Rico, I was enjoying the laid-back lifestyle of the area. There were plenty of good restaurants to try out, and the abundance of green space provided a peaceful atmosphere. I was fortunate enough to have an apartment located on a cliff, just a short distance from the water. The only downside to living in the area was the old infrastructure, which meant that during the rainy season we would lose power for a few hours at a time. Luckily, I had a gasoline generator to rely on during these times. One day, a new neighbor moved in a couple of doors down from me. He drove an incredible custom Chevy van from the 70s that was just begging for an epic airbrushed wizard on the side. I was excited to have a new neighbor who shared my love for unique vehicles. However, any excitement I had quickly faded when I discovered that he was a terrible person. I caught him taking the gasoline out of an orange jug that I had left outside in case my generator ran out. I confronted him about it, but he denied it and played dumb. I couldn't believe that he would do something so selfish and dishonest. When he did it again for the second time, I decided enough was enough. I took all of the gasoline in the jug, filled up my generator, and put the rest in my car. I then headed to the nearest gas station that had diesel fuel and filled up the jug with it. A few days later, I was woken up by the sound of a tow truck backing up to pick up his now disabled van. I looked out the window to see the anger on his face. He knew he had been caught and that he was in trouble. The satisfaction of seeing him get what he deserved was indescribable. As it turned out, my neighbor had a reputation for being a general piece of shit. I had no idea that I wasn't the only person who had problems with him. From what I gathered from talking to other people in the community, he had a long history of being a terrible person, and what happened to him was well-deserved.
Every year, my ex and I used to go to a luxurious Cancun resort with our mutual friends. It was always a highlight of our year, but that all came crashing down when I discovered that he was cheating on me. I couldn't believe it when I saw the flight confirmation email he had accidentally left open on his computer, showing he had booked a trip with the other woman. It was an ugly breakup, to say the least. I had already prepaid for the vacation, but he refused to pay me back. I spent weeks searching for a new place to live and moving my belongings out of his house. On my last trip to his house to collect my things, I asked him once again for the money, but he still refused. That's when I came up with a plan. I accidentally took his current passport and left my expired passport in its place. He had already booked the tickets and didn't bother to check his passport until he got to the airport. Needless to say, he was denied the international flight and was unable to go on the trip. I never did get my money back, but the satisfaction I got from knowing he couldn't go on vacation was worth it.
In high school, my younger sister was relentlessly bullied because of something she had no control over, a physical trait that made her different. It destroyed her confidence and turned her into a shell of a person. But the worst part? The main bully was a beautiful foreign exchange student named Nadia, who seemed to take pleasure in making my sister's life a living hell. As her older sister, I couldn't stand by and watch her suffer. I had to do something to put an end to it. So I hatched a plan to take down the queen bee. It started with spreading rumors about her promiscuity to her conservative host family. But I wasn't done yet. I threw a party one night when my parents were out of town and invited Nadia. She came like I knew she would, and got drunk on the ample supply of alcohol I provided. I made sure to snap plenty of photos of everyone having a good time, including Nadia in all her drunken glory. Then, when everyone had left and the party was over, I posted the photos on Facebook, tagging Nadia in them. She was too drunk to realize what was happening, and because of her automatic timeline settings, the photos went live on her page without her even noticing. I knew her conservative parents would see them before she had a chance to take them down. And they did. The next week, Nadia was gone from school and flown back to her home country, apparently to be saved from being corrupted. My plan had worked, and my sister was safe from ridicule.
Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you.